Captain Paul from the locker room. If you have not already, I appreciate if you hit that like button, comment down below. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. But let's get right into it. The Boston Bruins and Jeremy Swayman are in arbitration, trying to figure things out. And there's a whole thing I want to go into because I think certain Bruins fans are just unrealistic. But save that. Let's just go into the nitty gritty of it. The Bruins have filed at $2 million. And Swayman is filed at 4.8 million. So most likely they'll come somewhere in the middle, maybe around 3 mil, 3.5. I'm assuming for Swayman, 3 mil would probably be more ideal considering the Boston Bruins cap situation. But there's still a gap there that needs to be reached, and we've seen throughout this process, like Samsonov for the Maple Leafs, they figured out a deal, and I'll be honest here. This is the conversation. We could talk about arbitration where we think. I want to talk about Swayman himself as a player because I see a lot of Bruins fans. I'm in a lot of Bruins groups just talking down on Swayman. Some saying he's the next greatest thing ever, greatest goaltender in NHL history, right? I don't think that's the case. He's a very promising young goaltender, and I think he could reach really great heights. But then there's the other side of it where you have some Bruins fans that just think he's absolute dog shit and is a product of the team around him. So looking at Jeremy Swayman's number in 88 games played throughout his career, 54 wins, 23 losses, 7 overtime losses, and for a 2.24 goals against average and a 920 save percentage. They got this kid out of the 4th round. Pretty damn good steal, if I'm going to just be honest with myself here. Now, last season, 37 games played, 24 wins, 6 losses, 4 overtime losses for a 920 save percentage and a 2.27 goals against average. Kind of pretty much directly in line with his career thus far. And what I want to point out here, right? Third year in the NHL, which the first year, can you really count because it was only 10 games, but we'll count it, right? Third season seeing NHL action. And yeah, first year, 7 wins, 3 losses in 10 games played, a 945 save percentage, and a 1.50 goals against average, and 2 shutouts. He took Halak's job from him late in the playoffs. Late in that regular season. He played spectacular. Next season, had a way bigger workload, 41 games played, 23 wins, 14 losses, 3 overtime losses / shootout losses, a 914 save percentage, and a 2.41 goals against average with 3 shutouts. Yeah, the save percentage, you saw a little bit of a dip because there's a lot more games played, but those are still very good, very, very good numbers, especially for a backup. And then last season, ullmark had the spectacular year that he did. He still played 37 games, 24-6-4 record, a 920 save percentage, and a 2.27 goals against average with 4 shutouts. Yes, ullmark and Swayman were behind a pretty solid, a great Boston Bruins team in the regular season. But can we just stop pretending that this guy isn't a good goaltender in his own right? Now, is he perfect? No, he's not a perfect goaltender. He has rebound control issues at times. And I do think at times he becomes a little bit too tentative in his net. When Swayman is on top of his crease, a bit more aggressive, he shows those flashes of amazing athletic ability. I think this guy is the limit for a guy like Swayman. He has proven to you he can be a quality number 1. And considering he got thrown into a really shitty situation, getting thrown into Game 7, that one game played, he did respectable. He did respectable. So, I don't know, man. I just see some people trying to say, well, Swayman's not that good. He's not as much, he shouldn't be getting as much as Samsonov. And I could see a little bit of that argument, but Swayman's 24. He has a 920 save percentage throughout his career thus far. Of course, he's going to get around that money. Because looking at Samsonov in his career, let's just do the comparison. He's 2 years older. He was a first round pick, right? 131 games played, so he's played about 50 more games than Swayman. 79 wins, 32 losses, 13 overtime losses, 10 shutouts in his whole career. A 908 save percentage and a 2.65 goals against average. Looking through his career, which is 4 seasons compared to Swayman's 3, Swayman's had far more success and is statistically better than Samsonov. Now, Samsonov had a really good year. He surprised me because before going to the Toronto Maple Leafs, you thought of him as a very good backup, maybe kind of like an average NHL starter, and he played out of his mind last year. Now, there were some stretches where he wasn't spectacular, but he always bounced back and showed what you wanted from a potential number one. Samsonov got paid. He got quite a bit of chunk of change. I would not be surprised if Swayman at the very least gets that same type of money. Because looking just at the statistics, he's worth it. He has a career save percentage of 920. And some may argue, well, it's the team around him. And that's all well and good. But from his argument, he could just say, well, I have better numbers than this guy. And Samsonov is making $3.55 million this upcoming season. So, of course, he's going to want to do that. Now, do I want the Bruins to make a bridge deal with Swayman? Absolutely not. I'd like them to lock him up for at least, maybe I should rephrase that. A bridge deal wouldn't be bad if it's not just a 1 year, a couple years, so maybe they can negotiate where they have a little bit more cap flexibility because Ullmark's older. Swayman's younger. He's the future of your organization in net. That would be the most intelligent thing to do. The guy's a good player. A very, very good player. I think we're kind of getting lost into this sauce of like, oh, well, it's the product around him. He still has to stop those pucks. And like looking at this contract right here, 1 year, $3.55 million. For Toronto, due to their cap situation, it makes sense why they did this. And Samsonov played spectacular, and hopefully he plays well for them next season when he's not just playing my Bruins. But it's not out of the realm of possibility for Swayman to ask for 3.55 or even possibly $4 million. Because looking at his ask, now is $4.8 million a bit much for a goaltender of his caliber? I mean, maybe. But if Samsonov is making 3.55 and throughout his career, Swayman has far better numbers than him, wouldn't it make sense that he want more money? I don't know. I think we're underappreciating the quality of goaltending that Swayman has given the Bruins over the past few years. Because the Boston Bruins fans, and I apologize for making this rant, but I feel like the Boston Bruins fans, we take for granted good goaltending. We do. Because the last few goaltenders went from Tim Thomas, who was spectacular in his short run. He had a couple Vezinas, won us a cup, Conn Smythe. Then you go to Tuukka Rask. Whether you want to say he folded in big games or not, was a spectacular goaltender and should be in the Hockey Hall of Fame. And then you go from to an Ullmark and Swayman tandem. Now, the first year of Ullmark in Boston, it wasn't like the Ullmark of last season, but still a quality goaltender. The Bruins fans have been spoiled by pretty damn good goaltending. Now, some may argue this, and this would make sense. The Bruins pipeline in Providence, they have some spectacular goaltenders. And you would not be wrong. You would not be wrong with that, because looking at the Providence Bruins last season with Bussi, he played out of his mind, and they signed him to another contract. I'm actually going to bring up the AHL statistics for the goaltenders here for the Providence Bruins. Oh, it doesn't let me bring up. Why is there only one guy they show on this? Okay, but I'll show this regardless. I apologize. This is kind of Gonna be minimal editing because I've been doing a few things today. But Brandon Bussey, apologize, I'm butchering his pronunciation. 22 wins, 5 losses, 4 overtime losses, 1 shutout, a 2.40 goals against average, a 924 save percentage. Some could argue that, I mean, his 2 years, right? Looking at the statistics, he's had a 920 plus in both seasons. Well, obviously, the first year was a very small sample size of only 5 games. But the Boston Bruins organization, we have depth in the goaltending situation. Now, is Michael DiPietro a guy that I look at being an NHLer? No. Reed Dick, way too early. But Brandon Bussey, like they signed him. Kaiser, I don't know his contract status as of right now. He was very good for the Providence Bruins. I apologize. I'd have to look up his stats right now. But looking at how things look out for the Bruins, like, oh, well, we have depth in the goaltending spot. It does not mean that the Bruins, you just can't take you can't take these guys for granted. You can't take them for granted. Here it is. Yeah, Kaiser wasn't as good last season. 900 save or something. Yeah, that's right. So, I mean, Bussey was the guy. But for me, I don't know. Rambly a bit video. I just think we're taking Swayman's greatness for granted. Am I saying he's the greatest goaltender to ever exist? Absolutely not. I'm not saying that. But he's only 24. He's been really good throughout his career thus far. Wouldn't you rather keep Jeremy Swayman comparison to Ullmark, who, 29 is not ancient by any means? Now, Ullmark had a tremendous season, but I don't think it's crazy to say he's not going to have a 938 next season, right? Ullmark played out of his goddamn mind in the regular season. But the Bruins team is changing. Bergeron's retired. Krejci's most likely not coming back. Do I think the Bruins are going to be a dumpster fire of a team? No, but there's holes now in this roster where they're not as deep. And when it kind of comes to Ullmark, looking of his career, this was the best one he's ever had. Because a substantial amount of games throughout his career, the most, the highest save percentage when he played a season of more than 5 games before the last season was .917, which is a quality NHL starter. But let's not forget his first year in Boston, people thought Jeremy Swayman was the better goaltender. Now, I hope Ullmark plays out of his mind. He won a Vezina. He just won a Vezina. I hope he plays really well, but I think it's unrealistic to expect that from him next season. Like, oh, well, he's just going to keep carrying this on. I hope I'm wrong, but looking at his career, he's a, above average NHL starter. He hasn't shown me the consistency of being a Vezina, and you could argue maybe because of being in Buffalo, he hasn't had that chance to thrive. But I'm more of a wait and see, and I think it's not a very smart play to get rid of Jeremy Swayman, who's a younger goaltender who can keep developing and be your future. But I'd love to know your thoughts down below. I'll be making these videos a little bit more frequently with a little less editing, more just conversational. But yeah, I just thought some of the conversation regarding Swayman and how he's overrated or how he's terrible, I just little out of pocket. Do I think he's the next Dominic Hasek? No, but he's a pretty damn good goaltender. But yeah, let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. I'm Captain Paul, and I'll see you, yes, you, in the next one.